created by MindSticks Foundation Trust.
Hello, students, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are going to journey from the microscopic blueprints of life all the way out to planetary evolution. We'll briefly cover heredity, the protein synthesis process, and mutations, before zooming out to the grand concept of evolution, its evidences, and Darwin's natural selection. So let's begin. Section 1. Heredity and genetic changes, the blueprint of life. Let's start our journey right inside the nucleus of a cell, looking at the very foundation of who we are. Before we can truly understand how life evolves, we have to first define heredity. You can think of it as nature's ultimate inheritance. It's simply the process of transferring physical and mental characters from parents to their progeny via genes. Now, it took us a long time to properly understand this. Gregor Johann Mendel is the pioneer of modern genetics. And through decades of hard work by various scientists, it was finally proven that genetic material is carried via chromosomes and that almost all living organisms use DNA as this fundamental genetic material. Section 2. Protein synthesis process, translating the code. Having established what heredity actually is, a crucial question comes up. How exactly do these hidden genetic codes inside our DNA build our physical bodies?
Well, the answer lies in the protein synthesis process. This happens through a beautiful step-by-step mechanism we call the central dogma. It involves 3 distinct phases. First is transcription, where an mRNA forms from the DNA sequence. Second is translation, where tRNA brings specific amino acids to match the mRNA codons. And third is translocation, where the ribosome moves along the mRNA to link it all together.
Just imagine the DNA double helix opening up to share its secrets. During transcription, an mRNA strand is produced, carrying a coded message right out of the nucleus. Then comes translation. The mRNA acts as a template, while tiny tRNA molecules act as little biological delivery vehicles, bringing the exact amino acids needed. Finally, the ribosome moves along the strand one triplet codon at a time. This movement is translocation, binding everything together with peptide bonds to form complex proteins. It's literally a marvel of biological engineering. And while we are discussing codons, we absolutely must mention the brilliant contribution of Indian origin scientist Dr. Hargovind Khurana. He made an incredibly important discovery by uncovering these 3 nucleotide triplet codons for 20 different amino acids. For this monumental work, he earned the Nobel Prize in 1968 alongside 2 other scientists. Truly a proud milestone for all of us.
Section 3. Mutations in genetic codes, the glitches. Okay, let's dive into what happens when there is a slight error in this perfectly orchestrated copying process. Normally, genetic transmission is a flawless copying process, but sometimes a sudden glitch occurs. Imagine you have a recipe book and a single letter is accidentally swapped. In our DNA, a single nucleotide might change its position. That minor but critical glitch is what we call a mutation. So, why does this matter to us? Well, while some of these changes are very minor and completely unnoticeable, others can be considerable. They can have real-world impacts, leading directly to genetic disorders. A very classic example of this is sickle cell anemia, a condition caused entirely by just a specific mutation in the genetic code.
Section 4. The concept of evolution, from micro to macro. Zooming out from these microscopic cellular mutations, let's observe how these tiny genetic changes accumulate over massive planetary timeframes.
This brings us to the grand concept of evolution. Fundamentally, it's a very, very slow-going, multi-dimensional process. It is the gradual, progressive development of plants and animals from ancestors having entirely different structural and functional organizations. We are talking about a timeline of 3.5 billion years here, leading to the immense biodiversity we see on Earth today.
Section 5. Evidences of evolution, the tangible proof. Since evolution is such an extraordinarily slow process, we can't just watch it happen in real time. It needs tangible proof to validate the theory. So let's examine the physical record.
We actually have several fascinating lines of evidence. If we compare the morphological similarities in animals, like shared structures of the mouth or eyes, we see clear patterns. Pair that with embryological similarities across vertebrates. In their earliest stages, embryos of different animals show extreme similarities, clearly pointing to a common origin. Anatomical evidence reveals something quite extraordinary, too.
Superficially, a human hand, an ox's foreleg, a bat's patagium, and a whale's flipper look completely different. But if you look at the underlying bone and joint structures, they are remarkably alike. This structural similarity is a huge indicator of a common ancestor. We also find clues right inside our own bodies, through vestigial organs. These are evolutionary leftovers, like the appendix or wisdom teeth, that are useless to us now but were functional in our ancestors. And of course, deep underground paleontological fossils give us a direct window into organisms that existed millions of years ago. Section 6. Darwin's Natural Selection, the Underlying Mechanism. Having seen the evidence, the crucial point is understanding the actual rule that governs all this massive biological change. This brings us to Charles Darwin. Based on his extensive observations, Darwin published his theory of natural selection in Origin of Species, the core principle, the survival of the fittest. He explained that nature essentially acts as a filter, allowing only those organisms with the essential modifications needed to survive and reproduce to pass on their traits. However, as good science students, we must critically examine history. Darwin's work was a massive milestone, for sure, but there were main objections to his theory. Scientists argued that natural selection is not the only factor for evolution. Also, no explanation was given for useful versus useless modifications, and the theory lacked an explanation for slow changes versus abrupt changes. Despite these historical objections, the foundational principles of genetics and evolution remain the bedrock of modern biology. I will conclude our explainer today with this thought to ponder. If evolution is truly an everlasting, gradual process happening all around us, what subtle changes might natural selection be favoring in living organisms today? Thank you so much for joining me on this learning journey. Keep observing the natural world around you.